Each day, I write down everything I do in order. In a recent video, I shared why I do this, and in this video, I'll share how I do this. Each day, I start a new entry in Journal app where I write out what I did in order that day, as well as adding pictures from the day. For example, woke up at 9:40 a.m., breakfast, cereal, elliptical for 50 minutes and what I listened to, shower, prepared for upcoming doctor's appointment, 1 hour and 5 minutes at PT, and so on for the rest of the day. I've been doing something like this every day for about a year and 9 months now. Overall, I'm glad that it's something I do. Now I'll get into the specifics of how I track things. First, I'll talk about how I track sleep. Each day, I just write down the time I wake up and the time I go to sleep. I don't use a watch to track my actual sleep duration or anything like that. I find that this approach works pretty well because I'm measuring something that's more so in my control, my sleep duration, as opposed to something that's less in my control, the actual amount of sleep I get. Next, I'll talk about how I track my training. For any endurance training that I do, including runs, hikes, or elliptical sessions, I track those mostly in Strava, although I just make a quick note in Journal app saying how long or how far I did it for. Then for any strength training or balance or mobility or anything like that, I will, in Journal app, write a list of the specific exercises I did in order. And there can be different levels of specificity depending on the extent to which I want to track it. Next, I'll focus on how I track my time. Anytime I'm doing something that I would consider to be focused work, such as studying or anything where I'm using a laptop, I start a timer to track how long I'm spending on it, and I pause the timer for any breaks I take and stop it when I'm finished. This way, at the end of the week, I can look through my journal entries, do a few calculations, and see how long I've spent on each type of thing. This gives me a really good sense of how I'm spending my time. The way I specifically do this is that right after I note how long I've spent on something, I put a tag for the type of thing that I did. For instance, @R for recording this video, @S for studying, or @L for logistics. This makes it easy for me to use the Control F feature to search through my journal entries and quickly calculate how much time I spent on each type of thing. Even though the amount of time I spend on something isn't exactly equal to what I get done, I feel like it's still a pretty good way of measuring what I do. Another thing that goes into my journal entries is physiological logs. I have a few injuries that I'm trying to manage, and I think it helps to keep track of how they're feeling on any given day. This way I can observe trends over time and see what may be helping or making it worse. I think this works pretty well for not just injuries, but health in general. Another thing I track in my journal entries is behaviors that I'm trying to do more or less of. For instance, I track how often I wear my retainers, which I'm trying to do more of, as well as how often I get distracted watching YouTube videos, which I'm trying to do less of. I have a question in my weekly review which asks how often I did each of these things, which ensures that I look back on these behaviors in particular. Finally, the last thing I track in my journal entries are experiences that are specific to each day. I like to write these things down because it helps me to remember experiences that I otherwise may forget. I feel like we forget a lot of our lives, and this is a way that I try to prevent that. Overall, I'm really glad that I use this method to track things. It's similar to journaling, except everything's objective and directly based on what happened. I can add my thoughts or ideas to any journal entry, but this certainly isn't a requirement. I'm mostly just focused on writing down what I do.